So my car is currently in the middle of the Pacific on its way back to the East Coast. But dude, you're going on a Pacific Island trip. Why didn't you just sell your car? Well, there's a reason for that. First and foremost, what's going on here in Hawaii and on Maui is tragic beyond anything I could put into words. In my description and my Instagram profile is a fundraiser if you want to help those families in need who've lost everything. Please, everything counts and helps. I wanted to make this post to kind of put a wedge in this tragedy and putting out some lighthearted content, especially with my move coming in 2 weeks. It's bittersweet, but it's opening a new chapter of travels, which will be my Oceania trip. Now, why didn't I sell my car? Well, I know it's just a car, but it's quite the story. Back in 2021, I had just moved into my new place here in Hawaii, and ironically, out of about 6 different cars I looked at, all seemed like scams. It just so happened to be that my family was downsizing all their vehicles, including mine, in order to move into their retirement home in Belize, which is where I'll be going after Hawaii and before my Oceania trip. With the right timing, my car got shipped to Hawaii, and for 2 years it's been my mode of transportation around Hawaii and has given me a means of transport to meet Hawaiians from my Hawaiian project. It's been quite the blessing, and yes, I love my Lancer. But now with my extensive year-plus long trip around the Pacific Islands and having given up just about everything here in Hawaii, people have asked me, why haven't you sold your car? Well, I want to go back to the first idea I had with my car. That sounds a little ridiculous, but I still want to share it anyway. Back earlier this year, I had this idea to ship my car to California, to leave it with a friend on his property for the duration of my trip, which will be about a year plus long, to return to potentially embark on what I consider a spiritual turtle island trip, a trip that would allow me to meet different indigenous people around the states, starting in California. And having a vehicle ready upon my return would give me the ability to move around and meet different people of indigenous background in California. Now the problem with this, a year long to return to a vehicle that's 11 years old, I'm not gonna come back to a vehicle that's working properly. 2, I thought to myself, this Pacific Island trip is already ambitious as it is. I'm already kind of having a tough time wrapping my head around planning a lot of this trip. To plan this trip directly after the Pacific Island trip was a little too overwhelming for me. It's something that I had to set aside, allow this trip to work itself out, and then I can start looking into the spiritual indigenous turtle island trip, which came to option number 2. Sell my car or ship it back to the East Coast. And with my mom giving me the okay to look after my vehicle while I'm away, I decided to ship it back to South Carolina. Now, why didn't I sell it this time? Let's just say that my life I like to consider a massive risk. What the hell does that mean? Everything that I've been doing, everything that I'm doing now, from my life in Hawaii to my time across the Pacific, I like to consider a big risk, because the reality is I have given just about everything about myself to be wholly immersed in Oceania. From my finances, sacrificing time with family, even my own well-being. Basically, in a nutshell, keeping my car is probably one of few or the only fail-safe plans that it's something that belongs to me. If something goes wrong on this trip, which I don't believe it will, I have a vehicle to go back to. I have a vehicle that's mine. Now, trust me when I say I have a feeling that everything will work out, even if it seems like I'm going up a steep hill, even if there seems like a wall or set of walls from where I am now to having a successful trip around the Pacific, I still feel like everything will go well. Going back to the indigenous turtle island trip, to be honest, this is something I've always wanted to do for much of my life. I have always wanted to meet the indigenous people of the Americas. And as I grow as a traveler, especially as a content creator, a cultural one at that, I just feel closer and closer to seeing that door to open to be able to meet these people. I don't know how it's gonna happen, but then again, most of my travels, I never foresaw how it would turn out, and it always turned out to be beautiful. As for my Pacific Island trip, it's still on the horizon. My departure from Hawaii is in 2 weeks. My car is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on the way to California for its transport across the continent to South Carolina, where I will be to receive it before going to Belize and starting 4 months with my ohana, my family, to have that time with them before I traverse the Pacific and enter the homes of different families. The reality is really setting in. I almost feel like I'm not entirely prepared to leave Hawaii, but at the same time, I am ready. A little bit into the brain of A. Perez, story time. Those are some of the things I had in my mind. This is kind of the trajectory of where I am, the progress of my transition from Hawaii to this insanely massive trip I'm about to go on. As for funding, it's still my biggest obstacle. I'm still working on it. If you would like to help fund my trip, I have a GoFundMe link in the bio. I have my Patreon where you can subscribe and go behind the scenes with me. I also have a link to a Ko-Fi for a one-time donation. Everything and anything helps, as I am 2 weeks left from having a job before I'm completely self-employed as a content creator. Something that I'm looking and hoping to do full-time, to give back into my travels, to give back into communities, to give back into cultures, which is essentially what this whole trip is going to be. Reality setting in that I'm soon to leave Hawaii to begin family time, which will be followed by a very extensive Oceania trip. Going back to the tragedy that's hit Hawaii, I also have the links below on how you can donate and help. Many of these people have lost everything. Once again, anything and everything helps. And why is this so dear to me? Look, I've spent the past 4.5 years here in Hawaii. I spent much of this time connecting with the indigenous of these islands, Kanaka Maoli Hawaiians. And let's just say that this tragedy hurts. Plenty more updates coming, guys. Stay tuned.